And now that we're all here gathered today, I would like to extend my very warm welcome to the CEO of the Asia Venture Philanthropy Network, Naina Batra, onto the stage.
Good morning. A very, very warm welcome to AVPN 2017, which is our largest gathering yet. And we are extremely delighted to be here in Bangkok, Thailand. We want to give special thanks to our main sponsor, Kontai Foundation, for bringing us here. Before I begin, I would like to introduce our founder chairman, Doug Miller, who all of you know, who we missed very dearly last year at Hong Kong. It was the first conference that he has missed. Doug has founded not just AVPN, but also EVPA, our European counterpart, and is on his way to start a new network in Africa, in Latin America, and across the world. Please welcome Doug Miller.
5 years ago, I jumped on the stage in Singapore, and it was 2 foot high. And each year, the team seems to increase the height of the stage. I know this is not a dignified way to enter the stage, but I have 3 lessons that I want to give you. Number 1 is age is not a barrier to doing anything, right? Number 2, never back away from a challenge. I view this as a challenge, and if next year the stage is 8 feet tall, we'll figure out a way. Thirdly, though, is don't have a fear of failure, okay? Not everything succeeds, but if you don't try, you'll never know. So those are the kind of the 3 lessons that I would like to have everyone take to heart. So the official welcome to the 5th annual AVPN conference. It happens to be my 16th, which means 12 in Europe and 4 in Asia. I missed last year, otherwise it would be 17. As Naina mentioned, we're here courtesy of Kontai Foundation and specifically Kun Vishian. He's clearly, and the people in Thailand know this, but he's a leader both in thought and in deed, okay? He does things. His staff obviously also played a big role in this. Also Rockefeller Foundation, who's been a strong supporter of ours, and Sasakawa Peace Foundation. Also, as I said, this is my 16th, and I've never been in a venue like this, at least not for a social investment gathering. And we owe that to the owners of the Intercontinental Hotel who have provided this. I'm not sure next year how we're going to do it, going back to a university campus, but anyway, enjoy it while you can. I'd like to thank 119 speakers. These speakers all had to prepare for their sessions, and that takes time. They also had to travel here. 370 members, growing at a rate of about 10 members per month. 340 to 400 guests. If you add all that together, it comes to over 700 people who have actually registered. We have food for $5.50, so you better get in the line early. And I'd like to also, that's not true. We got food that will be left over. But I'd like to thank the AVPN team, obviously led by Naina, but there's a board of directors that are also very active and influential, particularly at the policy stage. The team, of course, has worked extremely hard on this, and we also want to give a round of applause to the volunteers because many of us would have gotten lost yesterday, or we would have gotten lost in this building if it wasn't for them. So. Certainly, last but not least, I want to thank my wife. Kunanan asked me if we'd been to Thailand before, and I said yes in 1973. We've been married for 44 years. And Audrey, you need to stand up. There she is, okay. But she's been with me on this journey the whole way and is very instrumental. Okay, so now for the meat of the subject, if I don't get this wrong. So why are we here today? We believe that we're all here because we have a strong commitment to seeing social change and seeing to address the social issues. Now, some people are on education, some environment, some healthcare, but we all recognize that there are major problems globally, and these problems need to be addressed, and they need to be addressed now. We're also here collectively because we want to learn from each other, and that's learning within the sectors, and it's learning across borders. So the people from Thailand can learn from India, the people from China or Hong Kong can learn from Thailand, and et cetera, et cetera. So it's a committed desire to work with each other. And then we're here because, at least we think, AVPN's motto is if you have the want to, we can supply the how to. And so when we speak about venture philanthropy, the execution of the model is not necessarily easy, but there's a lot of learning, and the Knowledge Center can help you out with that. Lastly, and hopefully my jump inspired a few people, we want to aim high. We want to increase our aspiration level in terms of what we do. So, as Nana mentioned, this is a global vision. 12 years ago, when we started EVPA with 13 members, it was hard to talk about a global vision. But once we hit 550, 600 members, it's easier to talk about a global vision. We need to thank AVPN for that, obviously, because of the big numbers they have generated. So EVPA in 2005, AVPN in December 2011, AVPN India in November 2016, and we have a representation here from Africa, and I hope most of them are actually in the room, but if you're from Africa, please stand up. So the team that I work with, and they're all in the room, I won't introduce them, but it's Andrew, Paul, Karen, and Alex, and you'll see them around. We've been working on Africa now for about 18 months. We've met over 400 people, 200 and some institutions, and we hope to catalyze and facilitate an organization like AVPN in Africa. People have asked me, well, what would you call it? And I said, well, if AVPN gives up their name, we'll call it AVPN. But since we don't expect that to happen, the code name anyway is the PanAfrican Venture Philanthropy Network. So why are we creating these networks in the first place? Well, it came out of a frustration on our part that there was no social capital market. And you had people who were looking for money who were going around with no knowledge of where that was, and you had people who wanted to give away money who didn't know where that was, and that's not how the commercial capital markets work. We also found that people were recreating the wheel because there was no knowledge sharing. So clean energy in programs and stuff that were being done in Africa or being done in Asia, they were all locally created, whereas they could have learned cross-border. So we started this because we wanted to attract more capital to the sector, and that's not only financial capital, which everybody talks about, but it's the human and intellectual capital which actually makes the financial capital a lot more effective. So human, financial, and intellectual capital, and I always put human first, because if you don't have the human capital, the financial capital is not going to be very effective. The sharing knowledge and best practice I've talked about, and then the collaboration. And when we talk about collaboration, we don't mean, you put money in our deals. We mean true collaboration where people work together, and that collaboration can be within sectors. That collaboration can be across borders. And this is a very idealistic view of the world, and we know the world doesn't operate like this, but over the next 5, 10, 15, 20 years, we hope to make significant progress. So we refer to this as the accelerating the development of the social capital markets. It's going to happen, but organizations like ours hopefully make it happen faster, quicker. This next slide is also fundamental, and those of you who are members have seen this slide so much that you can kind of close your eyes and think of your next holiday. But this is very, very important, and that is because right now the capital markets are not seamless. There's the philanthropy side, there's the social investment side, there's the impact investment side, and there's everybody in between, and there's all these definitions. Well, the great thing about AVPN is that we represent a continuum of capital. So the people in this room represent all the way from the far left-hand side to the far right-hand side. And this is extremely important. So if you look at it as a continuum, you can see why it makes sense to work together. I'll go on this slide very, very quickly. Basically, it just shows the growth. Europe, no one had ever heard of what we were doing, so it took a while to gain traction. When we came to Asia, we just pulled out the book and said, this is what we do in Europe, and these are the members. And Asians in general are quick learners, quick adopters, and then they do it faster, quicker, cheaper, more effectively. And you can see how the red line has grown very good. The green line is an aspirational line. We don't do things in a small way. If we do it in a very determined way. And we're hoping when the organization is launched in Africa, it'll hit and beat the Asian Association by hitting 120 members. I see Nana shaking her head, but Nana's going to actually help that happen. This is basically the slide that talks about the diverse membership. It's not totally representative because we have 50 countries where we have members. The big gap, and I'm Canadian, but that's an inside joke. But the big gap is it doesn't list that we've got, just in AVPN, we've got 36 members from the US. And those are generally quite large foundations and quite large corporates, all of whom do business in Asia. And so it's in their interest. This is the overview of members by type. What's interesting about this, and we refer to it as a big tent. There's lots of small tents. There's a tent that only deals with corporates. There's a tent that only deals with foundations. There's a tent that only deals with professional service firms. But if you're trying to bring the human, financial, and intellectual capital together, and if you're trying to create synergies, you have to have a tent where the people are in the tent. So we refer to this as the ability to break silos and to have cross-fertilization. If you were here yesterday as a member, Nana went through each of these in great detail. I'm already probably over my time limit, so I won't do that. But these are the things that AVPN does in terms of bringing services to the market and to the members. I'll mention two: the Deal Share platform, where, and we have a Deal Share Live, I think it's what we call it, and that's where we highlight opportunities for people to make investments, and it's only open to members And the reason for that is we need to control the volume a little bit, but every deal that's listed on there, a AVPN member has already had an engagement with them, so there's a certain amount of pre-qualification involved. The Asia Policy Forum, we spent all day Monday. Was at the UN here in Bangkok. It's their Asian headquarters, and we had 20 representatives from 20 countries, roughly 97 people. And we're working very closely with governments in terms of making a more eco-friendly atmosphere to work in. And then the collective initiatives refers to, we're now big enough in Asia, we can start talking about sector focus. And so we're having a major sector focus event in India on September 14th. We have several sponsors who are making that happen. We did a membership survey, and it was, all good, except for one major point, and that's that members didn't know enough about our services. And we thought we had promoted our services very well on the website and newsletter and publications, but we'll do a better job. But it's really important for members to engage with us to help make that happen. It can't just be a one-way thing. In the Knowledge Center, Kevin gave a presentation last night for those of you who were here. But if you go down to the far end, you'll see a lot of Knowledge Center publications that I think you'll find very helpful. Okay, this is my favorite slide. It should be your favorite because it's my last slide. Clive, who's very creative, put this together. I want to say that these are not my baby pictures. I was a lot cuter than that as a baby. But the things we're trying to get across is people, and a few people up here talk about solving the health issues or education issues. That's not going to happen. You don't solve things. What you do is you make impact and progress. But to do that, you need to be determined, you need to be creative, you need to be collaborative. Now, Audrey and I have two grandsons, age 4 and 2. We look at the world today and we're not really very happy with what we see for a whole variety of reasons, some political, some social, economic. But future generations need us to act, and I think if we don't get a much bigger sense of urgency, then we're not delivering to those people that we need to deliver for. So we have a very full day ahead. Kunanan, who Audrey, who Nena is going to introduce. I spend more time with Nena than Audrey, is going to introduce, has a long history in the sector. Nena will explain that, and we're extremely privileged to have him as the next speaker. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Doug. Audrey, I promise there will be no stage next year. But anyway, it is our great honor to welcome our next speaker, His Excellency Konanand Panjarachun, to come and address this gathering. Konanand has been the Prime Minister of Thailand twice, once between 1991 and 1992, and then again in 1992. He was effective in initiating both economic and political reforms. One of the most notable things that he did was the drafting of the Thailand's People's Constitution, which was promulgated in 1997 and then abrogated in 2006. Konanand has also received the Ramon Magsaysay Award for Distinguished Service in 1997. During the course of his many, many decades of civil service, of political service, of service to the community in Thailand, he has been recognized both locally and internationally for his dedication and his work in the advancement of the society of Thailand. We are indeed extremely grateful to have him here and have him speak to us. Welcome, Kunanand.